Hey, Honors Bulls! This week on the Honor Roll podcast, we're talking to Honors advisors Arnaldo Mejias, Krysta Banke, and Ava Gomez to learn how they support students as Honors academic advisors. Stay tuned to find out more. Hey, Honors Bulls! Welcome to the Honor Roll podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genshaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Caroline Merriman, a fourth-year student studying English and biology at the University of South Florida and a member of the Honors College. As always, we like to start the podcast off with one big question. So my question this week is, do you have a mentor? I think for me, mentors have taken many different shapes, many different forms, throughout my life. I've had neighbors and Sunday school teachers, and even here at the Honors College, academic advisors, but also faculty and upperclassmen who have kind of each played their own little role in my life. And I think that's a really cool thing about, being a part of, any community, but also being a part of the Honors College, where everyone is kind of mutually invested in each other's success. And you're always having a conversation about, your personal goals or things that you're doing outside of class. And that is always something that's been inspiring to me. And speaking on mentorship, this week we'll be joined by 3 Honors academic advisors to talk all about mentorship, what it means to be an Honors advisor, and how students can get connected. So stay tuned for all that and more coming up next.
Hi, my name's Amanda Jakoboski, and I am a 2022 Honors College alum. If you were thinking about joining the Judy Genshaft Honors College, I would 100% recommend it. It was the best experience I had in college, and it allowed me to get the feeling of going to a small school while being at such a big university. Once you get here, I think it's so important to talk to as many people as you can and make as many connections as you can, because there's so many amazing people in the Honors College with so much to offer.
Hey, Honors Bulls! Today we are joined by Honors advisors Arnaldo Mejias, Krysta Banke, and Ava Gomez. Would you all like to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your roles at the Honors College?
Well, thanks for this opportunity. It's fun to be doing this. My name is Arnaldo Mejias, and I currently serve as director of the advising team. And in that role, I support the team of now 8 advisors in helping them do what they do best, which is supporting our students. I've been at USF for almost 20 years, so I'm among the longest serving staff members in the Honors College, but it's been an amazing journey, and I'm so fortunate to be here.
I'm Ava Gomez. I am, as of a couple days ago, I was the newest advisor, but we since have had another team member join us. I joined the Honors College as an advisor in June of this year, actually, so right in the middle of the summer semester. My primary role right now is being an academic advisor to my students, and I have a really good range of different majors that I advise. I have some biomedical sciences students, psychology, some social sciences, and then the College of Community and Behavioral and Community Sciences, CBCS. So yeah, I have a range of students, and I really enjoy my role in advising, and I hope sometime in the future, maybe delving into other roles within the college.
Hello, my name's Krysta Banke. I advise Comp Sci, Comp Eng, all the computer majors, humanities, and also exploratory majors. I also work with promoting career opportunities for Honors College students and train our summer onboarding mentors.
Well, thank you all for being here today. I kind of wanted to start the conversation with what it means to be an Honors advisor. So what is an Honors academic advisor, and maybe how is it different than a major advisor that students might typically be used to?
We collaborate with our peers. We connect with the colleges. We all work with the same students. So each college might have a slightly different approach or a preference or a need. So we are able to do academic advising related to the major, and the major department's going to be the most expert on those pieces. However, we have the time and the resources and the exposure to talk about things like national scholarships, study abroad, grad school. We have the flexibility to help people think about what they want to think about. We're pretty darn accessible. I think if you send an email to your advisor, you're going to hear back within 2 days.
Yeah, just supporting what Dr. Banke just finished describing. We work with departmental advisors who sort of have a two graduation approach and kind of horizon, whereas we look at post graduation and work with that. And we try to help students meet those post graduation goals and plans, whatever those may be. In general, for honor students, it tends to be professional, graduate school, and in some cases work. But on the whole, we have students who pursue higher education or advanced education.
Yeah, definitely. And I also, what I like about our role is, of course, we can help with the different departments, and like helping the students with like planning for, 4 years and beyond as well. But I really enjoy talking to them about co-curriculars as well and ways they can get involved on campus. And I still learn alongside them since I'm still new and like learning opportunities that they can pursue as well. Because, of course, we're also advising for the honors academic curriculum and experiential learning requirements. So kind of helping them along that journey. And that also kind of coincides with a lot of their post-graduation plans as well. So kind of learning more about them, I think, is really important to kind of help them find opportunities that align with what they're interested in. And I think that's really a gift of what we're able to do, is really use our time to learn more about them. And I feel like I'm always learning really cool stuff about the students and what they're involved in too.
Dr. Banke, you mentioned that from like degree advisors from USF, that students kind of get more of that, graduation approach, but from honors advisors, they get more personal time, mentorship and things like that. And I think that's something that I've benefited from a lot as an honors student, that you kind of get to dip into each pool. And I've found with my honors advisors that I've built some really personal relationships and found mentorships that I've carried throughout my college career, people who have helped me, redefine my path and find new career opportunities. Are there some common questions or problems that students, frequently come to you with?
Well, just to back up, I mean, I think advising in honors is at its core consistent with the curriculum in honors, right? So we begin with acquisition of knowledge, which sort of answers or tries to answer the question, what does it mean to live a good life? And our advising approach is very similar. It's not just what does it mean to earn a degree, but what does it mean to live a good life with a degree that you're going to earn? And our advising is consistently framed around that question.
How does that kind of impact how you approach conversations with students or the advice that you give them?
I believe it forces us to, or compels us to be catalysts for those kinds of connections. We tend to be very relational for us, or at least for me, for sure, but I believe that of our team. Relations are paramount. And yes, eventually we'll get to the information that the student needs, or we'll get to the scheduling that the student needs. But our advising approach is really centered around developing relationships, and not just between advisor and advisee, but between advisee and staff at the Office of National Scholars, and advisee with alumni, and advisee with university leadership. People who can make a difference in that student's future, because again, the core question is, what does it mean to live a good life with the degree that you will earn?
Yeah, and I think a lot of students maybe come in with this preconception of what college is supposed to look like, and that you're supposed to achieve all these things and be preparing for a career, and they don't realize that it's kind of the place where you find yourself, and that is what is most important about college, is that you find,
Absolutely.
what's going to make you happy, what's going to make you feel fulfilled. And so I think that having, an advisor with this approach, this philosophy around what you should be giving students in regards to advice, really helps a lot of students kind of pull away from, such a career-centered focus that we're all kind of taught to believe. Do you find students coming in with a lot of, similar issues, or frequent questions that, you guys help them address in their lives?
I advise College of Engineering students, and at midterm time, or when it comes to the first exam, a number of people will stumble and be very, very uncomfortable with the grade that they got for their first test. So I try to help people think about strategies, kind of understanding the general culture, which is, okay, the professor is teaching you concepts one by one, but they're going to combine the concepts and show them from a different angle on the exam. So if you want to be successful in exams, consider doing sample exams, writing your own exams. And then when you get that tricky question, you'll be smiling and say, I totally knew that was coming. So definitely that'll come up. So sometimes people walk in with like a core topic, like course scheduling or picking a major, but often things that are important to the student will arise, and we're in a position to help them think about what's important to them. We can share resources that could help them move forward in their goals, and we're definitely on your team.
And I think for me, I'm meeting with, and I think because I'm also joined over the summer, I met with a lot of like incoming first year students. And of course, it's AA hold season. So I've just been meeting with a lot of first years. And a common pattern that I see, not only from just an advisor perspective, but also being a recent student-ish, I guess. Yeah, I was an undergrad pretty recently. So having that similar kind of mindset coming in, I mean, we're advising super high achieving students that achieved a lot in high school and also, with their trajectory are expecting to achieve a lot during their time in undergrad and beyond. So sometimes, when we were talking about before, not just getting them to graduation and not just checking all of these boxes, but also encouraging them to think about what they're passionate about, I think is really important. So sometimes I hear students talk about what will look good, or they're concerned, they're falling behind already. And I'm like, it's October, you're not falling behind, So I really enjoy kind of asking them why in these conversations, like, why are you interested in graduating earlier? Why are you interested in this particular trajectory, to kind of break that down a little bit and see, what they really want to do. And I just encourage them to think about that more. So especially in those kind of appointments where they do have those kind of common patterns of concerns and things like that, I just really encourage them to think about it. And they can always come back to me and make decisions. But, they're so early in their journey, and I really want them to think about what they enjoy, what they're passionate about, because they do have time.
Kind of what you're referencing, Ava, and what Dr. Banke has kind of talked about previously. What is it like to kind of like watch students transform?
Very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
Students share their adventures with us. They share their concerns. We see them grow over time. We see them make insightful decisions and grow a lot in 4 years and mentor others, grow into roles that maybe 2 years prior they couldn't imagine taking that on, being president of a club with 900 members, and then they're president of the club, or they're initiating some sort of cross club or cross college collaboration. They're presenting research. So it is really wonderful. And like Ava said, we grow alongside the students. They teach us stuff, and that helps us better advise more people with similar interests.
I just have to second that. It's for over 20 years, I have seen young people come in not knowing almost anything about higher education or about a major or about a career. And now many of them are VPs of organizations, multinational organizations, or physicians,
Business founders.
I mean, nonprofit founders. And so to see a young person develop from not knowing much to someone who is really impacting the world is one of the reasons why I've remained in higher education for such a long time. It's so rewarding to see that.
Yeah.
And it's so rewarding to know that we've played a small part in that journey.
Yeah, it's really special to get to be a mentor for someone when they really, really need it. And I'm sure a lot of students really appreciate that. And you guys have talked a lot about student successes and transformations. And in light of all that, what are some of your biggest challenges that you faced or learning curves that you've had to overcome since being an academic advisor?
Policy changes are always difficult to navigate. We are beholden to other people who may or may not understand the higher education landscape and who have their own constituents to appeal to and all of that. And so we understand that. But often decision makers and stakeholders from outside impact how we end up approaching different things internally. And so navigating those changes and helping students understand that we are with them and we are going to be with them regardless of those changes and regardless of those policies, and that ultimately they will achieve their goal. But that, I think, for me has been one of the more challenging issues over the past, couple decades.
I have an issue in my back pocket. I don't mean to be glib, but we have a lot of international students, plus a lot of people who just like food from other countries. And I would love it if we had Pakistani, Indian, Southeast Asian food, if we had African food on campus, Latin food on campus. I feel like we could better represent the cultures that we have present through our food offerings.
It'd be a cool way to voice support for international students as well, make them feel at home at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say I'll echo a lot of what Arnie was saying. And of course, I'm new to advising, new-ish to advising, especially full-time, and I'm also new to USF. So there was just a huge learning curve with just learning an entire new university's systems and curriculum, and also just honors in general. But I love to learn, and I feel like advising is a career where you have to love to learn because there are so many changes and I'm always learning new things. So that was exciting. And I think one of the, challenges is kind of like what Arnie was saying before, balancing, of course, policies and university-wide, rules and regulations, of course, that we are going to uphold, but also advocating for the student. And I feel like it is a very delicate balance because there are some times where you hear the student, and that's such a gift that we have, is we're learning so much about the student as a person in the short time that we have with them. So it makes you want to advocate for them more, right? When you hear them want to make these decisions or want to, expand on their learning and maybe add a double major or minor or stay for the full 4 years and things like that. And I hear that on my end of like, wow, they're so passionate about it. And there might just be, other circumstances that or other forces that, of course, we're upholding the university's policies that might not necessarily align perfectly with that. So, advocating for the student, but also keeping the balance with the policies. And of course, I always want to err on the side of advocating for the student. So I would say it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that's worth it because ultimately we're helping out the students. So it's worth it to me. And that's across the board with all of the advisors that we have on our team.
Having heard about some of your experiences as advisors, what inspired you guys to start this career in the first place?
NACADA has a phrase, advisors are educators. So I saw myself first as an educator, and I was very attracted personally to working with an international student population. I thought I would teach English to speakers of other languages. And I did start the master's degree and finish it. But towards the end of that master's degree, I was doing an informational interview, and I learned that in my region, Rochester, New York at that time, experienced ESL or English instructors were being laid off, people with 30 years of experience. So it was not an area that was growing. So personally, I like education. I like people. And I feel like it's an honor to be a part of someone's journey and that they're willing to share some of the painful parts of life and some of the confusing parts of life. So definitely, again, it's really rewarding to hear people out and, like Arnie said, help them, some tiny extra bit of information, like here's an RAU website. Are you interested in doing research in the summer? It's paid. That could help somebody move forward in their goals.
Frankly, I stumbled upon advising. I didn't know it was a career path. When I was in junior high school, I started to understand that other people like to talk to me, and I was a good listener. And so as I began exploring career paths, I figured, okay, I might be able to do something in psychology. So that's what I majored in college. And then after I went to graduate school and started applying for jobs, nothing was really landing until I ended up with an educational opportunity program advising job at the State University of New York in New Paltz. And having grown up in Massachusetts, it was quite a drive for me to go from Lowell, Massachusetts to New Paltz, New York, which is about 90 miles north of New York City in the Catskill region of New York. Beautiful place. But when I went for my interview, I made sure that I was their top candidate because I wasn't about to make the drive, the 4-hour drive, if I was not going to be seriously considered. And one thing led to another. I was there for 7 years. It was a wonderful experience. I learned so much. I grew so much. And that led to this current position in 2005. And I've been here ever since. So it was, for me, it was stumbling into a profession that I didn't even know existed and then growing within it.
I always knew I wanted to be in education in some realm. Both of my parents are teachers, so I just grew up with that kind of lifestyle. It's funny, my sister and I went to the same school both of my parents taught at. So all of us were going to school together, always involved in the school. And then I went to college. And in undergrad, I started getting involved in research. I really enjoyed research. I thought it was fun, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. So I was like, I want to be involved in the university. Maybe I'll go be a professor. So I was admitted into a PhD program at the same university I was at. And of course, with trying to find funding for PhD programs, I wasn't offered a teaching assistant position. So me being me, I was like, I need to know how I'm paying for this. But I was involved as an ambassador for my college. And we did a lot of it like advising kind of peer to peer for students during, advanced registration and drop ad. Because sometimes we're the most approachable people that students can find. We would sit like right outside the advising building. So they kind of had to come talk to us. And I really enjoyed that. And I saw there was a position open for a graduate student in the college. And they'd already interviewed for that position. They had an agreement with the Student Personnel and Higher Education program. So they'd already interviewed. They'd already had their candidate. And I made a meeting with the, the coordinator anyway. And I was like, hey, just keep me in mind. I don't want to like disrupt anything, but if something happens, let me know. And she emailed me like 2 months later, like, hey, that person's not coming to this school anymore for their master's program. Would you like to interview? And that's how I fell into it. So I was a grad assistant for the last 2 years, and I just loved it. And I was in my research PhD program at the same time I was advising. And I knew after like 3 weeks, I was like, ooh, I don't think I want to stay for the PhD. I want to be a full-time advisor. So I just really threw myself into, I went to like the NACADA conference. I did an internship for orientation advising because that's a little bit of a different style. And I just really loved that I could meet with students. And I just got these like personal little wins, I think, when I saw them growing and they come back to me like, I got the class I really wanted, or they changed their major to something they were more passionate about after maybe speaking with me. I don't know if I was the catalyst for that. So I was like, I knew I wanted to be in education, but I felt like that was the best realm for me because it's so gratifying, I think, seeing them on their journeys and talking to them. And now I feel like being a recent student, I can kind of relate to them also in that sense as well.
For the benefit of our listeners, NACADA refers to the National Academic Advising Association out of Kansas.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Sanjeev Varma, and I'm a current rising sophomore majoring in business analytics and information systems, and I'm a current student, part of the Judy Genshaft Honors College. My favorite honors memory would be at the end of last semester when I was wrapping up my Geographical Perspectives course, and we had a fiesta to kind of end off the semester where my classmates and my professor each brought a unique dish from each one of our cultures, and we shared that on the very last class of the semester. Kind of trying all these different types of foods introduced me to these types of cultures, and that was kind of a completing and like a fulfilling experience to end off the course, and it's definitely one of my most fond memories.
It's really cool to hear how you guys each have your own unique journey and how you kind of arrived into this career field and what experience and background you're bringing into, how you help your students. And I'm sure you each have different methods and different motivations. How does being a part of the Honors College advising team align with your personal goals or theology as an advisor?
I have to add that I was a first-generation college student. And so for me, going to college was something that was entirely foreign. I know that is true for many of our students in the Honors College and at USF. But I'm thankful for all the people along the way who helped me out, including a professor of philosophy who then became my boss because I was hired as his student assistant. He was a vice chancellor of academic affairs at the time. And I learned a lot about administration and the tenure review process for faculty and all of these things that, some kid from like the inner city of Lowell would have never learned about had it not been for that opportunity. And it was all because I took a class, I think it was ethics, and he was the instructor, and he reached out to me. He asked me if I needed a summer job. At the time, I was working for a community nonprofit, but being on campus more seemed like a better deal, and I think they were paying me more, and so I said yes, and the rest is history. He became a mentor to me, and that led to double majoring in philosophy, and so here I am. I mean, the path it hasn't been singular or my own effort. It has been because of the help of many people along the way. And that's the experience that I hope we provide for our students, right? We're one of many people that we hope they meet along the way who can help them ultimately reach their goals and their life dreams.
I feel like when I was also, I just joined the team in June. So when I was looking into this position, especially and looking into the, what honors means at USF and the Judy Genshaft Honors College, I was really taken aback by how much of an emphasis was put on the students and their development, not just in terms of their academics, right? We were talking before about, not necessarily getting them to graduation, but to graduation and beyond. And I really appreciated the fact that in honors, we're also helping them with experiential learning and providing career opportunities, pre-professional opportunities, but also really cool ways to get involved and build a sense of community here. And I feel like that's so important. And I was excited to advise for that as well, right? And just meeting the students, especially in the Honors College, has been so fulfilling because they have so many interests. And I really appreciate the fact that through honors advising, I can talk to them about all of those experiences, as well as I really enjoy working with the advising team because, like I was saying before, to go into a career like advising, you have to want to constantly be learning. And I just really appreciated how when I first joined, of course, not only just being new to the team in USF, but also being new to working full time as well. Everyone just showed me such grace and they also were advising me. So just showing that not only are they passionate about advising students, but also developing each other and working as a really good team. So that's something that really stuck out to me with like our honors, not only as a college, but advising as well.
We have a metaphor for how the advisors are available to each other. We say, oh, it's on the carousel or go to the carousel. So we can each consult each other for questions relating to professional things or even personal things. I think the question, how does your job align with your goals, is a question I ask a lot. So I appreciate you asking me that. Similar to what Arnie said, I was also a first-generation college student, and I was a Pell Grant recipient. And I received a scholarship that was a leadership and service scholarship that required me to volunteer 10 hours a week. And through that scholarship, I gained exposure to areas that I wouldn't have tried to reach, given that I didn't have a car and I lived on a bicycle, including the Montagnard Degas Association, which serves and represents Vietnamese refugees in Greensboro, North Carolina. As I got to know people, I got to teach English as a second language. We had a grocery store right across the street from the classroom. So we went to the grocery store and pointed things out and talked about them. And the opportunity to help people make their dreams come true, especially touching on education, but also maybe career plans or life or spirituality or values, all of that is very fulfilling. And it consequently helps us, or at least help me make a better decision. I had a big life change. And at that life change, I was suddenly free to relocate to wherever the heck I wanted to relocate. So I figured out instead of moving to Buffalo, I would much rather move to Tampa, Florida. And I interviewed with USF and I was hired into the College of Engineering. And definitely I'm very grateful to be here. It's a comprehensive university with so many opportunities, with a tremendous international student population and awesome librarians and great colleagues. So it's a good place to be.
And you all have kind of touched on how like your undergraduate experiences kind of what either impacted your journey towards advising or your approach to advising. Could you maybe talk about how you use your personal experiences to help students maybe approach or frame their own problems?
So personally, sometimes people ask something and I'm able to share. Um, Personally, I was able to do a health and wellness coaching program, which is a certificate offered by the Public Health College. And that gave me the tools to facilitate conversations to help people raise up what's important to them and think about how to address it and help them to define small next steps to grow in that direction. And so that has definitely helped me help others. And also occasionally I'll meet someone who's pre-med and I'll be right up front. I'll say, look, I'm biased in favor of this, but if you're interested in helping people, if you're interested in gaining rapport with your patients and hearing them out and helping people make decisions and stick to them, this health and wellness coaching program certainly has a lot of potential and was very fulfilling for me to do. And it was free for me because I work for the university.
I think being like a recent college student for bachelor's and for grad school, I also went through school during the COVID-19 pandemic. I also went through like the college admissions process very recently, so I understand a lot of the pressures. I was also Pell recipient, so a lot of those like financial pressures for scholarships, but academic pressures, especially in today's environment where, the job market, you just hear about it all the time. It's very difficult. And it's also students are just navigating so many different things, not only in their personal lives, their academics, being stressed out about getting into med school or law school, and also just in terms of the world and the climate of the world today. And I saw that especially during the pandemic where, your body doesn't necessarily compartmentalize stress. So I understand a lot of the stressors may be impacting so many different realms of a student's life. So going through a lot of those things in my undergrad, I can see that and relate to that in a lot of ways with students if they are having, financial pressures or they are having the pressure to succeed maybe from family or, they're just, nervous about things happening in the world, especially, we just had a huge natural disaster hit our area. So I can relate to a lot of those things being a recent student. And, that I think helps with kind of connecting to them in a way and having someone like me like, hey, I understand what's going on. Not just, okay, you still need to do these classes though, or seeing, they might not be doing so well in a class and not just being like, okay, you need to pick it up, but hey, let's talk about why are things going on in your life. So I think going through a lot of those things has helped me relate to them in a lot of those ways that are outside of the classroom and not just grades or classes, but, in their personal lives as well.
I think in some disciplines such as psychology, one is exposed to many different systems and theories to approach problems. And so it's easy for me to be eclectic about that and pick and choose which theories work best with whatever situation or specific students. But in general, I tend to be very pragmatic, right? It's important to know maybe the history and the context of why a student is feeling in such a way or why a student has a certain need. But the real question is, what can we do about that now? And what are the next maybe one or two steps? And I always try to come up with solutions with that framework, because again, while we can listen to somebody's history and background and context, and it's important, I'm not dismissing those things, but often what people need is help with the next step or two. And so that sort of compels me to be more pragmatic in my approach.
You guys have talked a lot about like your approaches to mentorship and how you help students. But as an advisor, how in return do the students teach you things?
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
I've actually achieved more and done more in service to others. So in teaching English as a second language, I have taken on roles and done things that maybe I would have been intimidated by or not feel that I was ready for. But when there's a need, you step up, and there's a need to listen. There's a need to hear out. There's a need to be culturally appropriate. There's plenty of room to grow. So I'm definitely a better academic advisor because of the information that people share with me. Students have shared with me resources and experiences, club activities, personal experiences. So I do a lot of listening, and I try to give the student as much room as possible to process and think things through. And often my contribution is something along the lines of what Arnie said, which is what would be a step you might like to take in that direction that feels doable? And when would you like to do that by? And then sometimes, would you like to meet with me after you do that? Or sometimes I send a delayed email and say, how did that step go? So there you have it. It's again influenced by the health and wellness coaching training that I got.
I'm constantly surprised by the strength and endurance of the human spirit. Sometimes students have really, really big challenges. I've been predominantly a pre-health advisor, and so I've had many students go on to medical school and pharmacy school and the like. And I don't pretend to know what they have to do to get to those professional programs. I certainly can advise on how to get there, but I've never gone through that process. And seeing how some students can overcome just unimaginable challenges and still achieve those goals reminds me constantly that the human spirit, given support and given the right resources, people could achieve amazing things.
I think for me, in my few years so far of advising, I don't think students realize, one, that like I remember them. And that's been really positive. Being in honors is having the time and the bandwidth to remember the students I met with. And of course, I haven't been here super long. But they impact me by I get personally invested in their journeys and what they want to do and what they're doing. So when they have wins, I feel excited on behalf of them as well. So, no matter what's going on, like they have me as a support of like, oh my gosh, you can share those exciting things with me. So I can think of an example. So before I came here, I was a grad assistant for a larger college. There was like 13,000 students. So of course, a lot of them didn't necessarily have, multiple appointments back to back, but I tried my best, of course, to remember a lot of the students that would repeatedly meet with me. And there was a student I met with. He was a non-traditional student. He was returning after not being in school as a college student for, I think it was like 8 or 9 years, but he came to me and he wanted to meet with me because like, I want to finish my degree. This is something I've been wanting to do. So working with him, creating his schedules, talking to him about his goals. And then I graduated from grad school in May, and at the commencement ceremony, I saw him walk across the stage and I was like, oh my gosh, it's that student. I'm not gonna say anything, I was like, oh my gosh. So that was a personal win for me because not only was I celebrating, his accomplishment, but I got to see his journey to get there. So that's something I was invested in of like, keeping up with the student. I want to make sure you graduate. And like, I got to see that result and beyond, so that to me was just showing, I do really care about these students. They're not just a number to me. They're not just a U number. They're a person, and they are, a human being going along their journey. And for me, it's really important that they know that I'm invested in their wins and, their failures, because I've had plenty of failures in my life as well. I'm that point person for them.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, if I may, I want our listeners to know that many of these professional programs and in life in general, we don't have to be perfect. Most likely, we're not going to be perfect. But what these professional programs, med school, pharmacy school, and the like, what they want to see is growth. And we can all grow as long as we don't get hung up on our failures, as long as we don't stop short of taking calculated risks. We all have the capacity to grow, and we should be growing as human beings. And what I want our listeners to know is that if you're struggling in a course, if you're having a difficult time with an instructor, whatever the situation is, come and talk to an advisor, talk to somebody, and grow from that experience. Life is much more than struggling in a course or getting a C in a course for the first time. It is about learning from one's risks, one's failures, one's challenges, and just becoming better. And we can all help one another do that. And we have seen that kind of play out year after year among students, among staff, among faculty, because in the end, we're human beings on a journey together.
Yeah, I think that's like a really powerful way to frame like advising and mentorship in general, is that all it takes is one person or one conversation to kind of reframe what may feel like, a really, detrimental moment in your life or something that you can't come back from. And it kind of, your whole reality shifts maybe after, one conversation with an advisor. And I think that's the cool thing about the relationship, is that at the root of it, there is a friendship, and there is like, this mutual kind of, you're rooting for a goal, but your advisor's also rooting for the same goal. And so it's nice to kind of have that shared camaraderie around, your own personal, things that you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
I did want to ask, what has been your favorite thing about being an advisor at the Honors College?
The free food. I'm just joking.
I knew somebody was going to say free food.
We do get a lot of free food. That's been great. I think it's really the students, and of course that's centered to what we do. Like, to be in a role like this, you have to want to work with students, and you have to love, being that mentor for students as well, and building that bond with them and building that rapport with them. But I think so far in the short time I've been here, I've met with so many students that are funny and bright and articulate. And sometimes they just come into appointments and we spend the first 10 minutes just chatting. I'm a big yapper, so I love to just talk with them. And sometimes they want to talk about their travels, their experiences over the summer, is what a lot of what we've been talking about. And that's just such a good, I don't know, it's a pick me up, but also just talking to them. Like, they have so much to say. They have so many amazing goals and ideas and plans for their futures and stuff. And I just like to be a part of that journey, right? And being able to advise in this kind of position with them and having the bandwidth to talk about things besides a 4-year plan and graduation is really special. So I've really enjoyed talking with them, but also something that's so special about being just in this building is there's so many ways that we can connect with faculty, staff, from every single floor, from every single capacity. I've just learned so much, we have amazing professors here, amazing staff across the building that are doing so many just wonderful things. And I just love being a part of that. So it's not just, we're on a team of advisors. Of course we are, but we get to interact with so many different amazing partners, not only here, but across campus. So being in this community has just been really special so far. And I want to stay here for a very long time.
I'll just add that I've worked at institutions that are as old as 1776. And what makes working in honors at USF special is that we work with some students who are brilliant, high achieving, high ability, but there's a sense of humility about them. And for the most part, there is no sense of entitlement, and that makes the job even more rewarding.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, in life, what makes life valuable is the people around you. And I have personally overcome a divorce in a previous work setting. I have pursued a PhD in a work setting. I have comforted people or heard people out or listened to people as they've had losses or they're trying to figure out things. And the Honors College offers a great cohort, a great community of people who care and who have amazing skill sets. So students can tap into staff and faculty. We can tap into each other. And we do have a stable and caring community that, again, helps me to grow, helps me to think about ways to move things forward and contribute.
Yeah, I think having this really like huge collective of people from all walks of life and, all stages in their own journeys and backgrounds, it creates a really cool network of support. And there's never a lack of people you can turn to for valid advice or just for a nice conversation. But that is all the time we have today.
Wait. When did you say you were able to make that pizza for us?
Make a pizza? Let me get on that. Let me go find my ingredients. But I do want to thank you guys for joining me today, and thank you for, all that you're doing to support our students here at the Honors College.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us back in the studio. Thank you, Mr. Mejias, for that question about the pizza. It actually, takes our audience behind the curtain of what we do here at the podcast. That's a question that we ask all of our guests when we're setting up and putting levels on our mics. So you guys kind of got to get an insider secret of what we do here. It was so cool to hear about each of the advisors' personal journeys to becoming an advisor and about how they use their experiences to help their students achieve their goals. To stay connected to your community, make sure you make an appointment with your honors advisor. And don't forget to check the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for all upcoming events, updates, and news. That will do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honors student Sandra Napolitano. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast. We greatly appreciate your feedback. Please join us next week to hear more honors stories and to talk to members of the Judy Genshaft Honors College community. Until next time, go Bulls!